Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we're back this week with another episode of Joe on Joe Illustrated. You new listeners, this is the podcast where we've covered every episode of the cartoon. We've talked about all of the issues of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero comic book. We've covered the G.I. Joe movie. We've covered other various comic books like G.I. Joe in 3D, how to draw G.I. Joe. Like this is a rewind show where we look through all the old ephemera, talk about it in, as I like to say, excruciating detail, and hopefully glean a little information and learn something. But most importantly, have some fun reliving some of these great comics and cartoons of our G.I. Joe youth. And for you long-term listeners, thanks for coming back. Yeah, I know you know what the show is all about. Like I said, we're going through special missions this week. We're on special missions number 5. You can look in the feed for previous issues. And you can also look for the previous 155 issues of G.I. Joe. You know, I got some exciting things coming up because we're going to be doing Renegades. We're going to be doing some watch-along shows with Renegades. We've got a couple in the bag already. If you're hearing this and you want to talk about G.I. Joe Renegades, if that was a favorite of yours, please reach out, because that is a show that I did not watch at all when it was coming out. I take that back. I remember seeing a couple episodes and being excited about it, but I didn't follow it. Like I don't know any of the stuff that happens on the show, so it's all very new to me. So I like watching it with one of you listeners who actually does know the show pretty well, and so it's kind of a reverse on how we did the original ones, where I was pretty familiar with those, and now we get to watch it with someone who really loves the Renegade era of G.I. Joe. So if you are interested, reach out and give me a shout at joeonjoepod@gmail.com, or you could send me a message on any of the social medias at joeonjoepod. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're listening to this on a podcatcher, which I'm assuming most of you are, please leave a rate and review. Let me know what you think of the show. And that helps boost the show and get more visibility and get more eyeballs. I know this is also shows up on YouTube, like whatever. Oh, there's so many ways to get so much content these days. I think it's fracturing our brains. I think it's too much. I think it's just too much, which is why I'm back again to do more content. So really though, it's a call. If you want to do Renegades, reach out, because I really want to fill it with people that have a special love for that show. Also, next week or next episode, we've got our friend Josh Egbean from the After Action Report. He's coming back on, and we're going to have a little bit of a fun After Action Report announcement for that episode. So I want you to get ready for that. And then after that is we're going to start rolling into Renegades. So, time moves fast. It's a flat circle. And here we are once again doing our part. Before we go any further, though, let's hear a little bit from our friends over at the Longbox Crusade. They've got a little promo here for an upcoming show they've asked me to talk about. If you're in the Shepherdsville, Kentucky area this January, you've got a little show called G.I. Joe Winterfest that's happening. So take it away, guys.
I sure do like podcasting about G.I. Joe stuff on G.I. Joe Chronicles and Outpost on the Longbox Crusade Network.
I do too. There's only a way we could do it without microphones or computer screens, in person.
Well, Jared, have you ever heard of Kentucky?
You want to solve this with fried chicken? I mean, I'm not against it.
No, I mean Shepherdsville, Kentucky. They host a nice little one-day G.I. Joe toy show called Winterfest. The next one is on January 24th, 2026. I say we have a Joe Podcast community meetup there.
Still not sure where the fried chicken comes in, but count me in. Let me see if I can find some KFC coupons.
While Jared does whatever Jared does, let me remind you listeners that G.I. Joe Winterfest is on Saturday, the 24th of January, 2026. The location is Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Website is GIJoeWinterfest.com. Jared and I would love to meet the listeners of G.I. Joe Chronicles and Outpost and any other Joe podcast while we're there. We're even going to set up a meet and greet dinner for after the show on Saturday.
Not if I don't find these coupons.
All right. If anyone's interested in joining us for dinner, send an email to contact@longboxcrusade.com. So again, G.I. Joe Winterfest is January 24th, 2026 in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. And our contact email is contact@longboxcrusade.com. We'd love to see you there.
Buy 2 biscuits for the price of 2 biscuits. What kind of coupon is that?
And, Shepherdsville is just Kentucky in general. That's a great central location if you're in that Midwest, East Coast area. It's kind of, if you're going from Chicago where the action's at, if you're going from that direction anywhere south, you're going through Kentucky. If you're up in, Pennsylvania, New York area, you can get to Kentucky pretty fast. If you're down in Atlanta, you can get up to Kentucky pretty fast. You know what I mean? Like it's a good central place for that kind of show. I'm talking about like in a vehicle, like if you're driving, I don't know the flight situation, but if you're within a couple hours distance of Shepherdsville, you might as well pop over there and check that out. Speaking of that, I will be at the Codename Iowa show this November. Going there with our friends over at What's on Joe Mind podcast, Mike Irizarry. I was on their show last week. We were talking about it with Brian Sauer from Assembly Required. We got into it. So I urge you to go to our friends over at What's on Joe Mind and check out last week's episode, the one that ran, what is today, the 8th? I guess it was last Wednesday the 1st of October. That episode, I've never been to Iowa. I've never been to the Iowa show. I've been to Iowa. Never been to the Iowa show. And so we learned a lot about it. I got excited. I can't wait to go there and check it out. I've heard it's very friendly, very family, like it's a big family, not family, like family, although it's probably family oriented, but like everyone's cool. Like it's a good G.I. Joe community meetup kind of a show. So that got me stoked. So if you're going to go there, reach out and say, hey, what's up? And now, without any further ado, let's dig into special missions. Another week, special missions number 5, another week where my copy is dog-eared. I wish I had seen this before LA Comic-Con. I would have picked up a better copy of this too. I always say you could tell someone's collection, if they become someone who's a lifelong comic collector, you can always tell the books that were their first books that they ever started reading, because they're really beat up. They didn't understand at the time. They didn't know how to take care of them, how to store them right. They didn't have bags or boards. I didn't have bags and boards for a while for my early Joes, and they read them a ton. What's really funny is when you look at the collection, like if you lay them all out in a row, like my Special Missions 1 is actually in really good shape. My 2 is pretty good. My 3 is pretty good. And then my 4 is garbage. This 5, garbage. 6 is not great. It's got a little dings on it, but it's not great. And it's because I got 1, 2, and 3 as back issues. So they come bagged and boarded. At that point, I understand about taking care of them. But that first few months, or first 6 months, maybe a year of your collecting is, the books are always beat up. And I mean, like, without fail, every time I've bought a collection from someone or gone through their collection for them, if they're selling it to a store or something, it is always the case. There is a point in any long run where you hit this patch of books that are really beat up, and they're like, yeah, that's when I first got into it. And I think it's such a charming quirk of the comic book hobby. It's literally like a time travel. It's like a fingerprint of your. It's cutting the rings open on your comic book tree, and seeing how old it is. So. I love that, and this certainly wears it on its spine, because this spine is jaggedy. However, this cover is not jaggedy. This cover's great. It's Ace popping out of an exploding Sky Striker with the Night Raven flying overhead. Got a vibrant kind of a red, light pinkish, reddish, dusky looking backdrop. The Night Raven taking prominence on the page as far as where your eyes go, but the Sky Striker is just popping off the bottom of this page. It's really, really solid. I believe it's a Mike Zeck. Looks like a Mike Zeck. Forgot to look that up before we got into it, but it's got the hallmarks of Mike Zeck. on the cover. And the skyscraper's absolute in flames, which is awesome. The issue is called Showdown, which is this book is 100% a compliment to that classic G.I. Joe 35 Shakedown, which featured Ace and a Rattler going at it, Wild Weasel, in a aerial combat. And so, like, this is the spiritual sequel to that, I believe, 100%. I didn't read anywhere that he said that or anything, but this absolutely feels like it's the spiritual sequel. And it's also like a tale of two ground crews. It is a step forward in this aerial battle story, like this dominance of the skies. It's a step forward for the book. Everything about this issue is amazing. It is clever storytelling. It is wonderful artwork. Wait till we get to some of the stuff that Herb Trimpe pulls in this book is really, really dynamite, and I absolutely love it. Even the printing is better than last issue. It seems like some of the register issues they had were resolved. There is still the issue of, again, whatever this form, the new format is. Seems like the registers are more in place here, at least for my copy, rather. But like the blacks are so flattened on the newsprint that it gives that effect where you see the highlights, like the blue, like a blue on black. You actually see the extra blue ink within the black. Like the blacks don't really black everything out. So it's a little off-putting, but it's still some really great artwork in it. So if you kind of approach it like, from a little bit of a distanced perspective, you can really, really appreciate the artwork. So it's interesting to see how they progress with whatever this printing process was. Again, I wish I knew. I don't. So Showdown opens up with this really nice bird's eye view, high profile shot of the Cobra stealth bomber, the Night Raven. And it's their grounds crew, and they're talking up the Night Raven. This is for the readers, so they're filling in what the Night Raven does, They're also talking trash about the Night Raven pilot. And, they're talking about how fast the airplane is, and it can avoid radar, and it's slippery, and blah, 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 all this stuff. Which, by the way, I had a Night Raven as a toy. Absolutely amazing. If you guys had one, you know what I'm talking about. One of the coolest, sleekest toys ever. It really just had a few, like, really cool operational gimmicks on it, like the Bombay and like the way the seats loaded from the bottom, things like that. And of course the flight pod that stuck on the back. Like it wasn't like a super gimmicky vehicle, like let's say the hovercraft, but man, was it like, it was just impressive. It was big. It had big wingspan, but it was also like kind of a little bit easier to hold in your hand. And then just by its nature of the black and red, it looked really great. I was a big Night Raven fan. I think it's really, really great. So, script by Larry Hama, Herb Trimpe on art, Bob Sharon coloring, Phil Felix lettering, Bob Harris editor, Jim Shooter editor-in-chief. And we're meeting more of the grounds crew here. And on this next page, we get some really great foreshadowing for something that Larry pulls off so deftly. It could just be informational, but it absolutely becomes pivotal in the final pages of this book. So one of the ground crew says, "What's that crowbar thing?" And he says, "It's a breakout tool. Problem with big monocoque panels, however that's pronounced. Combat damage anywhere on the airframe could jam the canopy. We wouldn't want our Stratoviper getting trapped in." And they were talking trash about him on the previous page. They were saying that he was a slime ball. They wanted him to get a clot in his reinforced plastic arterial system. Remember, the Stratovipers were surgically enhanced to withstand high Gs. And so he walks up on them and throws these guys off his ladder, steps on their hands, basically trashes them. He says, "Use your remaining good ham to wipe those greasy fingerprints off my control surfaces." It's a nice drawing of the Stratoviper toy. Pushes people aside, literally steps on a guy's head as he's walking up the ladder. I guess I shouldn't expect moderate intelligence from duds who don't qualify to fly the primo stuff. The great physicality from Trimpe here. It is Stratoviper is really just bravado. His chest is puffed out. His arms, it's just pushing dudes away, stepping on heads. It's nice acting by Trimpe. So we get to the next page. It's Raven is taking off, and this is where this has really caught my eye, artwork wise. Trimpe starts with a page-wide panel of inside over the shoulder in the cockpit of the Stratoviper, and then he cuts to like a flight deck view. This feels very Top Gun-y at dusk, so that you've got a kind of a purple backdrop sky. There's a few helicopters off in the distance, which will come into play later. It's a little foreshadowing there as well. And the Stratoviper is off the ground, so it's taking off in the distance, and the moon is wrapped in like jagged circles. I'm not sure how, like limpid pools of moonlight are flowing off this moon. Like that's the best way to describe it if you're not looking at it. So picture a circular moon, and then around that picture a circle, but more of a like a hexagon, like an oddly shaped hexagon that wraps around it, and then another one around that, and then another one around that, and another one around that, and they're oppositely colored blue and white, right? So it looks as if the moon was dropped into a pool of the sky, and the sky is rippling away from it. Really neat. And I don't remember seeing Trimpe do art like this, but it pops so much. So all this whole story takes place at night, and it really, really, really works well. And it just caught my eye, and it's got me so excited to read the rest of this book. Grounds crew is still talking trash about him, saying that, like, why do we put up with that guy? And he is going to fill us in on what his actual mission is. So he's doing a little bit of the narrative lifting here. He's flying over Florida. So remember, this was the era when they were based off of Cobra Island. So you're coming from the Gulf of Mexico. He's going to fly over Cobra and take a whole bunch of high altitude reconnaissance photos. And he's expecting trouble because he's going to buzz an Air Force base, and a lot of times they'll send up planes to buzz him. I don't know if they've sent up Sky Strikers or anything else before, but today he's curious what they're going to send. So meanwhile, over in Florida, it's the Joes. It's Hawk, Slipstream, and Ace, and they're saying they've got on their radar that the Night Raven's already launched. And this general... who is this? I don't know. I don't know who this is, to be honest. I don't think, do they say who it is? They actually don't say who it is. But it's Ace and Slipstream and Hawk there. And this general, whoever it is basically saying, they keep doing this to us, so we called you Joes in to help us out. And Ace and Slipstream are going to go up, and they're going to track them down. And they've been given the green light, as they say, green flag to fire a Sparrow or a Sidewinder up the Raven's afterburners. But only if fired upon first. Hostilities are still a major no-no. Because remember, this is the era when Cobra Island was actually a state, like its own country. So it's more than just, it's a plane of a terrorist group. That's a plane of a neighboring country. So there are these, the rules of engagement that the Joes are expected to follow. And we see here immediately a bit of the difference. This is why it's grounds crew against grounds crew. There's a bunch of Tomahawks with rescue pilots, and the Joes are calling them by name, Ace and Slipstream. The Jonesy, Peaches, Lowball. They're joking, you may as well go home early. Me and Ace don't intend to take any dips in the drink, Be careful, guys. The less we work, the better we like it. So these guys are actually friends with their ground crew because they understand what teamwork is all about. We get a nice little glory shot above of the Sky Striker and the X-30. They say she checks out clean, had a little problem last night, so they ran an extra scan on the threat detection system, and they came up with a bum cryogenic seeker cell in the ALR-23. So they had to pull the cell, and that's why and this is Slipstream. So Slipstream's talking to this ground crew guy. This is a great moment. It's a little weird, but it's great. So he's talking to the ground crew guy. The ground crew guy's like, yeah, to stay extra and fix your plane. And Slipstream's like, well, that's why you couldn't stop by the hospital last night, because your son, Matt, had his tonsillectomy. And Slipstream went to visit this guy's son, Matt, in the hospital. And it's amazing. What a great way to demonstrate the difference in personalities and friendship between the grounds crew and the pilots, in this case, Slipstream. And Slipstream hands him a Transformer toy. And he says, I reckon this will be better coming from his old man. And now we've got something for a no prize here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to write into a no prize here, because Slipstream says his name is Jet Fighter, and he turns into a swing wing fighter. And Matt's his son. What's his guy's name? Larry? What's this guy's name? Did he even say? Matt's the kid. Huh. Well, we'll call him Larry. Larry's looking at this guy, and he's holding the Transformer. It's Megatron. It ain't Jetfire. Jetfire was an F-14. It's Megatron. So he's obviously holding Megatron. He doesn't know any difference. He says, what won't they think up next? So they thank everybody and go get them, guys. So is it a case of like, what was Herb just told to draw any Transformer, and that's what he had on reference? And Larry didn't know the difference between Jetstream and Megatron. I have no idea. But the no prize is that none of them can tell the difference between toys. And Slipstream asked for the Jet Fighter. The guy at the toy store had excess Megatrons to sell. Knew Slipstream would not know the difference between a Megatron and a Jet Fighter. So he sold him a Megatron instead. And that's the no prize. And certainly Larry, the ground crew guy, has no idea what it is either. So there you go. I want my no prize in the mail. Thank you very much. So shortly, these two airplanes, they take off. And we don't waste any time. This issue is also great because it doesn't waste any time. We cut right to the Night Raven flying above the clouds, and immediately the Sky Striker is underneath him in the way of his cameras, so he can't actually take the photos that he wants to take. And the X-30 is on his tail. Now, he does say, how did they sneak up on me without my sensors going off? Now, that makes, and he says, I'm going to have to shoot the crew chief when I get home. So what that makes me think is that crew is not paying attention to his airplane. They're not keeping up on his fine-tune adjustments and all the various cells and nodules and components that need to be refined. So it's a little bit of a harbinger of what's going to come. So Slipstream in the X-30, he's flying behind him and he's got him in his sights, but they don't want to fire first. They just want to scare him, wake him up. Slipstream's saying, it's telling Ace to see what he can do. Maybe he'll lose it and do something they can react to. So Ace, in an absolute Top Gun move, is flying circles around the Night Raven, trying to rattle him, and he eventually flies inverted, a la Goose and Maverick in the first Top Gun movie. And instead of flipping him the bird, he gets really close with his cockpit and says, yo, mucus face, read my lips. And he says, eat my dust. And at that point, Sky Striker wobbles away and takes off in front of him. Now, we know the Night Raven's faster than the Sky Striker. That much we do know. In fact, the Night Raven is probably faster than both of these. But it's probably not as maneuverable as the Conquest, but it's probably more maneuverable than the Sky Striker. But all this tail wagging upsets the Stratoviper, and he drops some of those sweet bombs that pop down in the middle of it. He drops some of them out of his chassis, and he actually hits Ace in the Sky Striker while he pops a flare in the face of the X-30 and Slipstream right away. So it's a quick little boom, bang, bang moment that absolutely elevates the Night Raven, gives him air superiority right away, shows his superiority to the reader because he knocks Ace out right away. Again, talking about Shakedown, we all remember Shakedown. This is Showdown. This immediately says Ace is last gen. This is why I was saying it's a step forward in this story, like storytelling of it, meaning Ace is now old school. Ace gets knocked out right away. And he has to eject, and Slipstream is knocked blind by these flares. So when he does that, that's when the Night Raven drops back into a firing position. Now, this whole thing is, and I'm, certainly no airplane master, but that was the idea of this. Stealth fighters are supposed to be for that. Like, yes, they can fight and bomb and stuff, but they're not like dogfighting planes. So there's a little bit of this of them being a dogfighting kind of plane that's a little awkward, but it works pretty well here because you have Slipstream being blinded. So he literally is at a disadvantage. So that's how the Night Raven can kind of slip in behind him and take him by surprise. Ace ejects on the next page. Ace ejects safely, flies, crashes into the Gulf of Mexico, we will say. And then as Slipstream's his vision's clearing up, he cannot find the Night Raven. But it turns out the Night Raven is in his 6. It's right behind him. I like the choices of art on this page. One, we get a little bit of an extended sequence watching Ace fall into the drink. We show his ejection seat like working mid-motion, like it flies up with propulsion, and then you see the parachute pop out, and then you see it kind of it's actually the smaller chute that puts him in drag, and then that pulls a bigger chute that actually slows him down, and he crashes into the water as his seat ejects off him. Like it's a nice sequence to instead of just showing him, showing a random parachute falling into the drink. And I would think they do this because we're not done with Ace. Like Ace is not out of the story, so we do want to spend a little bit of time with him to make sure that we see, that he landed safely and how safely he landed. Usually, if they're writing someone out on a parachute, they just literally show like one panel of him parachuting to the ground, and then you never really catch up with him. But that's not going to be the case here with Ace. And then when we're going to Slipstream, in the middle, you're dealing with someone who's kind of got blurred vision, which is weird because he does have those goggles on. So that was a little, I would think the goggles would compensate for that. But anyway, setting that aside, the panel they use, it's a long, thin panel, and it cuts off his vision. It cuts off his hand. Like our view of him is very narrow, which is like, if you've ever been blinded, when your vision starts coming back, you do see very narrowly. You don't see the whole world. It's like you're seeing small bits of the world, and then slowly your eyes open up and see a little bit more, right? Because you're blinking and all that stuff. That's the vibe I get from this page, at least this one panel here in the middle of it, and I like it a lot. So the Night Raven shoots a rocket at him, and on the next page, he does get tagged a little bit. It's got a proximity fuse, so it blows up in vicinity of him. It tags his wing a little bit, but he's also dropped some flares, and the flares have kind of blanketed the entire Night Raven. So that's seemingly thrown it off kilter. Now, this is another moment of Trimpe art that is, I don't remember seeing him do this. He's got Slipstream going into a vertical, like a stall, right? So he has to show that the plane is stopping forward motion, but also shaking everywhere. And it looks like he's used like thick ink brush, almost markery strokes on each edge of the plane. And it's great because it's not showing any forward motion at all. It's just showing the plane shuddering. And in the next panel, more shuddering even as the plane falls down. And inside the cockpit, you see the shuddering happening on Slipstream's head. These are really cool choices because he's not doing speed lines. He's doing like shudder lines, so to speak. And the plane itself, story-wise, does go into a spin, and it's spiraling down. And we get Slipstream trying to feather the engines back on, things like that. The next page, the Aero Viper is... he thinks he won. Like he sees the plane starting, the Conquest starting to fall into the water. So he says it's a waste of time to follow him down. And then there's he hears from their base, there's a formation of rattlers standing by to escort him. And he calls those rattlers off. Like, I don't need them. If it came down to a real fight, I would have to defend the Rattler, so he's full of himself. This is another great panel of showing the night sky and just this this like singular movement of the plane, but without using speed lines. I really, really dig it. And then we cut back to revisit Ace, and we see that Ace is back in the drink. He's in a inflatable raft. He's got a buoy, floatable buoy that's showing his position, and he's calling in for help. And then we see that the grounds crew revisiting them. They literally say one of our birds is in the drink. Like, move it, scramble. Anyone know who went down? It was Ace. Don't worry, we'll get him out. So these guys are actually concerned about their friend. 2 tomahawks take off. And now we get more. This is the culmination of Slipstream trying to come out of his stall, and this puts the camera right behind a spinning, like a spiraling downwards conquest. The lines just emanating from the center. Really, really great as he's trying to restart everything. You don't really know how close he is to the water. And he's sweating, and you see his finger punching the air start button, and you see his jet start, and then you get these 3 panels that show you just how close he is to the water. What a great choice. It leaves us in suspense. We don't know, was he high, was he low? We don't see his altimeter in this one, on this page yet. We just know that he's sweating it, and he's really worried. And these 3 pages show the progression of him coming pretty close. In fact, it looks like he skims in the final panel. He skimmed the water. At least he got close enough to his afterburners kicked up water. So that's great. And that's not like, it's not protracted tension. It's tension, and then it's showing you, oh yeah, he really was pretty close. That was great. I love it. Next page, more of these nighttime plane outline strokes with the inks, and I can't say how much I love it. It gives the impression that these planes are not flying, but swimming through the sky. That's how aerodynamic they are. And I don't know if that was the impression he was going for. I don't know if he was just trying something new, but that's really the vibe I get, versus a lot of the Sky Striker, dogfight stories we've read, that you show speed lines, you show, clouds getting moved in the way these planes are drawn, they're just existing in this sky. And they're just defying gravity. It's like they're going too fast to bother with speed lines. I love it. So we see though that the Aero Vipers, his backup systems are out. His threat display unit has gone blank again. The crew chief should be replacing sensitive parts on a regular schedule. He should strangle him personally as an example. So all this stuff is again showing about the grounds crew not taking care of their guy because their guy is an a-hole. But he's not worried because he's fairly positive the X-30's destroyed. And then Slipstream flies up behind him and hits him with 20 Mike depleted uranium armor-piercing shells, which absolutely shreds the tail fins of the Night Raven. He doesn't understand how he got the drop on him. He can't shake him now. And we just get Slipstream. It's like he's talking to him, but they're not really. It's more of a comic trope, which is a great comic trope where it's like he's having a conversation with the other pilot, but we know they're not actually hearing him. But he's telling him why he's doing this. Like, I'm not spiteful, fella. Even if you did shoot down my buddy, I'm not holding that against you. He goes, I'm just following orders. I was told to wait until I was fired upon. And in a really nice half-page splash, he launches his Sidewinders. And they strike true, as they say, and the tail of the Night Raven explodes in the night sky. Both engines are out, as the Viper says, crate's going down like a dead pelican. He's going to glide it into the ocean. He says he's still outside the operating radius of Cobra rescue choppers, so he's actually a little too far for the rescue choppers to even reach. So he's got to eat up some nautical miles and glide down for a bit. And he's calling for Mayday help. And while he's doing that, they hear him on Cobra Island, but they are not in a rush. They think it's a practice, and then it's not a drill. We have a Night Raven down in the Gulf. And they're like, well, there's only one Night Raven that's actually up there. You know who's driving it. Yeah, let's mosey on out. And these guys, the body language that Trimpe draws here could not be better. They are so... There's a guy with his hands in his pocket. They are so casually loading up onto these Cobra helicopters to go rescue a possibly dying soldier of theirs. Like, it's amazing. No one's rushing. The rotors aren't even moving yet. You would think if they were in a rush, they would have started the rotors and you'd show them spinning, ready to take off. No, the rotors are still static. I love that choice. An absolutely great choice. And now we get Slipstream checking in on Ace. How great is that? Would the Cobras do that? Would they fly over their buddy to make sure that he's okay? No, they wouldn't. So Slipstream flies over. He sees Ace is chilling in the raft. Gives him a salute. We see the Tomahawks make their way there. We're, quote, we're on our way, making good time. And the Night Raven, conversely, is slowly falling into the ocean. His engines are smoking. Can't hold it together. He's gonna eject now. He's close enough so the helicopters could reach him. So now he's gonna eject. But the canopy won't jettison. And he's explaining, for us, the charge won't go off and the manual release is stuck. So Night Raven to control. I need a rescue unit on top of me immediately. And Trimpe chooses to go in for like a close-up on his face. Very, this is very like Joe Kubert enemy Ace kind of stuff, where you get right up close to the pilot in a moment of stress and you see what he's thinking, like if he's, if he's thinking about his girl at home and at the home front, or, the dignity of his enemy in the sky, whatever that thought is, Kubert would zoom in and give you that really camera close view of that pilot. And we get that here with the Aero Viper, and he is sweating. He's worried. He's not happy. And he knows that he's going down very ugly. And in the Cobra rescue choppers, it sounds like they're like, it sounds like Mr. Air Superiority is going to get his flight suit wet. And someone says, we could cut a few minutes off of our flight time by running the engines up close to the red line for the whole trip. And the pilot replies, I don't want to risk burning out our bearings. Maintain present speed. So they do not hurry. Meanwhile, miles away, Ace is being rescued by his buddies in the Tomahawks. Didn't get a chance to use his shark repellent. And Hawk's even on board to welcome Ace back. He apologizes for losing another Sky Striker. And in Hawk's words, planes we can replace, good pilots are a lot harder to come by. And Slipstream's happy to go home, paid a victory mark. They all fly away. And on the flip side of that, this 2-panel progression is really nice too. There's 6 panels on the page. Top one's a little thicker, middle one, the next one's a little thinner, and then they get real thin for the 4 that are Cobra. And the top 2 are the Joes, and the second one is the 2 Tomahawks kind of reversing course and flying back. You see the ocean, the sun has come up, right? So now the sun's out. You see the cloud cover. There's no more of that nighttime thick broad stroking that Trimpe was doing. And then meanwhile, it's kind of it's the same camera angle right below it. Same ocean, different, miles away. But it's such a great transition from the Joes who've rescued their guy and are heading home triumphant to the Night Raven that is coming to a splashdown in the same ocean, splashes down. So a successful splashdown by the pilot. It doesn't crash. Like, he does his job right. And he's looking for the breakout tool because he's got to break out of the pilot or the cockpit, right? He can't do that while the plane's up in the air. He had to wait till he splashed down. And the bracket is empty. This is that tool they talked about on page 2. And he's banging on the window as the water is covering the plane, as the plane is sinking in the water. And he is trapped and drowning and dies in that moment. It's fantastic. they don't show it. It's not grizzly, but he is banging on the window as the water is coming up to his, like, in what would be his chest. I don't know if it's leaking in the cockpit yet, but he is going under. And meanwhile, back in Florida, the Joes have landed, or they are landing. The whole grounds crew is there to welcome them home. Slipstream does a cool little flyby a la Top Gun, which in a nice, very, very neat four panel sequence. It's 4 vertical panels, and taken as a whole, it's an overhead drawing of the entire, not the entire, but a vast majority of the airport, like the runways and the multiple runways and all the tarmacs and things like that. But you have the Conquest slicing through it at a vertical angle, which also brings your eyes across and down on the page, which is really cool. And Ace, thanks everybody. Slipstream salutes everyone. Here's for you. The jocks may drive the crates, but it's you guys on the ground who keep them flying. That's really awesome. And on the final page, out in the Gulf, we see the blown up tail of the Night Raven finally sinking underwater. And they were too late. Any sign of a life raft, you should have been able to crack the canopy and get out. And one of the ground crew guys says, that's too bad. Those canopy release charges were way overdue for replacement. And the manual release should have been lubed regularly. Still, should have been able to break out of the canopy, says the one dude. And the raven-haired guy says, with what? And he's holding the crowbar. And the guy says, that's the breakout tool. And the original guy goes, yeah, I lifted it from the bracket when I buckled him in. And they're like, well, don't get caught with it. And they toss it into the ocean. What a tale of 2 grounds crews. A tale of 2 teams. This comic book is fantastic. This is one of the better, this leaps to be one of the better Joe stories that I can remember reading. Teamwork, right and wrong, like how do you do your job? How do you take care of your friends? Good guys, bad guys, aerial action, beautiful artwork, like really stunning artwork. Trimpe's really at the top of his game on this. Like this is an amazing issue of G.I. Joe. So if you have not read G.I. Joe Special Missions 5 in a while, and if this summary intrigues you, good God, go read this book. It's fantastic, and it's an absolute great bookend to Shakedown, one of the other top G.I. Joe stories of all time. There's something elegant about pilots dueling in the sky stories that just brings out the best of Larry's writing. I think just because it evokes a simpler time with the anachronism of being in state-of-the-art jets, somehow you're a more pure combatant because it's just the 2 of you in the sky. Like in the old days, if you were dueling on horses or dueling with pistols at dawn, something like that. But you're in these state-of-the-art, multi-million-dollar beasts in the sky. So it's great. I love it. Really, really solid. So listeners, thank you for enjoying this. Next week, we got Josh Egbean coming on the show. We're actually going to be doing some giveaways soon. Something to do with the After Action Report. I got some extra books here once again to give away. We did some of that in the spring. It was pretty successful. So we'll be doing some more of that in the coming weeks as well. So, enjoy this. We'll see you soon. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.